Weird. It's the start of the month and he hasn't shaved. Well, I was thinking it might be super duper funny if I don't shave now until New Year's for an over the top fresh new start. Alright, it's me. I'm back again. And it's a pleasure to say, would just like to draw your attention to the new album by Thrice called Horizons West. This is the band's 12th album and third for Epitaph, a few years after their pandemic side A album Horizons East. They love an A and B double album, this lot. I don't remember much about East, to be honest. If you've never heard of Thrice before, they're a punk rock band from California, inspired by bands like Shai Hulud or Cave In or Quicksand or Bad Religion back in the day. They started around the same time as bands like Dredge or Botch or Poison the Well. We're talking around the end of the 90s here. That's right, kids. They're my age. They're a melodic hardcore band amongst the dawn of metalcore, and I think they even toured with Poison the Well at one point. Bands that came out swinging with a more youthful hardcore sound and then softened in certain ways as they grew older. Now, Thrice's third album, The Artist in the Ambulance, was the first CD I purchased when I moved to Brighton in the winter of 2003, and Thrice pretty much soundtracked the whole time I lived in Brighton. With my friendship with architects, we would always blast their music in the van. In fact, a lot of people name certain albums as MySpace albums, and I hope future historians add the Alchemy Index to the list for soundtracking the MySpace era. Songs like Digital Sea was everyone's profile song in that generation. They inspired a lot of bands. Then, much later in my life, speaking of Sea, they dropped Sea Change in 2017 when I lived in Barcelona, and it was one of my songs of the year. And maybe I just love listening to them make songs about the sea when I live near it. If there is one thing we can rely on those pesky Californians for, it's that they understand the sun and the sea. Also, the album after it, Palms, had the song Everything Belongs, and that meant a lot to me during a life-changing grief event I was going through, and the lyrics resonated with me heavy. So what I'm ultimately saying is I've loved them for ages, and I'll always check them out day one. I remember not being that fussed about Horizons East, but the great thing about Thrice is they've got multiple sides to them. I'm a fan of some sides more than others, and which is obviously rooted in how and when I found them. It's a bit like Deftones in that sense. It's great to be a fan of a band for 20 years. What's on the menu today? Warner Child. We've got 11 tracks for you, technically 10, running at 43 minutes. Starting with track 1, Blackout. It's a big, anthemic, stadium-sounding, large opening to the album. Big drums, mountain-shaking vocals, and fuzzy guitars. I can just see them extending the end live and getting the whole crowd to do the raised arms clap at festivals. One thing I do love about this track is Dustin is up for singing over either himself or the backing vocals like he does at the end of this track. It's a great start to the album. After that, we've got track 2, Nash. The first single for the album that I covered in a previous end of the month video. An almost sizzling bass and Dustin singing through his grinding teeth, just seething and biting. It's one of their best songs in a while. Huge and pointed with a breakdown that harkens back to the beginning of the band. Really love the drums on this one. Wish the album had a few more heavy tracks like this. Following that, we've got track 3, Albatross. It was the second single from the album, which has grown on me over time. It's a well-written song that has the modern Thrice rock sound with lots of great chord changes and cool guitar licks. Parts of it made me think of the Spill Canvas. It's full of catchy, easy sing-along lyrics like "They kept on telling me our stars are crossed, but I think you might be my albatross." It's a songwriter's song. You can just picture an acoustic version of it doing really well on a radio show appearance. Next up, we've got track 4, Undertow. The name of this song will have Tool fans giving Thrice the side eye, but contrary to the title, this is a gentle, subtle song with programmed drums and acoustic guitar, where the band is barely scraping the strings with their fingernails until it erupts and we get some lovely, typical Thrice picking in the distance. Definitely has some lovely Alchemy Index vibes on this one. After that, we've got track 5, Holding On. It's a refreshingly upbeat, punkier track that takes me back to those 2003 days of Ambulance. In fact, it made me think that I'd love to see Thrice take out Spitehouse on the road with them. I think that would be great. Still has all those usual verse breaks a Thrice song tends to have. A band that fully knows how to utilise the fact it's more than one guitarist. And after 20 years, you can hear how unbreakable Dustin and Tepe are together. One is doing Hetfield rhythms and one is doing Kirk leads. I love the key that Dustin is singing in on the chorus. It's really nice. This is classic Thrice stuff. Probably my favourite from today. And then we've got track 6, Dusk. Literally nothing to see here. Following that, we've got track 7, The Dark Glow. The title doesn't lie. This is a dark and moody, weighty, slow track. A track where Dustin really gets to shine as all the instruments are quiet and give him some space. And even when it does explode, Dustin is still soaring above it. The man's still got it. What a vocalist. What a voice. You know when like a wise tree talks in a movie? That's how I see Dustin with his oaky flannel voice. If they were born 10 years earlier, they would have been up there with Soundgarden on tracks like this. Up next is track 8, Crooked Shadows. Clap for bands that let the bass player shine and aren't afraid to have their guitars be silent for 30 seconds, let alone 2 of them. There is something so Fugazi about this chorus. It legit sounds like it was recorded in 1990. I'm pretty sure the band are fans of Fugazi, which would track because we're the same age and I was exposed to Fugazi as a same time as a teenager in the 90s. I'm just saying that like when you get to our age, you get so reflective, and so maybe that's some early inspiration shining through. It's top stuff. Following that, we've got track 9, Distant Suns. I personally love Thrice when they do this sort of up-tempo kind of breakbeat rhythm, and Dustin is at his most melodic vocally, and that sliding bass line as well. It was very tasty. It's almost giving Incubus Morning View. Almost. Another fave from today for sure. And then we have track 10, Vesper Light. Starts as a sort of 70s sounding prog track, and then, speaking of Soundgarden, we get smacked in the head by a big old Tom Morello Audio Slave type riff that blasts out like they were covering a Muse song or something. Not sure how I feel about Dustin's falsettos on this though, but it gives the album some added variety, I'll give it that, and I know they are Radiohead fans, so maybe that's why Dustin's trying it out. But then bang! All of a sudden out of nowhere, all those Tool fans that were side-eyeing them on Undertow will be doing the DiCaprio point gif as the fucking Schism bassline turns up. My jaw dropped to the floor. I was shooketh. They make it work though, and it sounds like their own, and it fits, and I like what they did with it a lot, and the ending is amazing with Dustin ascending. I wish it ended in like a climactic scream instead of a mumble over the ruins, but all of the 90s influences infused in this album have really started to form a map of connected dots. But then, last but not least, track 11, Unite West, where some Buddhist monks have arrived at the end of the ceremony and taken over Dustin's body for some sutra chants. He is a mere portal now, a host, a gateway. The echoes of thousands of years of ancient voices flow through him. We feel the monks in our bones and the earth in our spines, perched halfway up the mountain, all settled in the lotus position, the high wind gently whispering through our maroon cloth, and we hear gongs and bells and chimes and 40x Dolby Atmos surround sounds. It's like a steamy, sleepy sound bath, and every particle in the air hums as a river of energy gushes through your bloodstream. As above, so below. It's nothing like the rest of the album, but I'd sure like a whole album like it. And that's it. I hope they never stop making music, even though it must be hard to look at a guitar after 20 years of albums and still find things to make out of it and stay inspired. Another aging band in 2025 proving they've still got it. And that is why it is my album of the week. Not sure what's next or who's next, but make sure you liked and subscribed to find out next Friday. Oh yeah, it's October now, isn't it? So, peace.